In Megamind, we get a unique perspective on the concept of villainy, as we follow the life of someone who, in reality, never chose to be the villain. From the very beginning, Megamind is set against the hero Metro Man, establishing the stereotype that he adopts for himself. Rather than seeing this as a flaw, this trait becomes an interesting characteristic that challenges the idea that villains are born villains. This approach allows us to question the role that society and circumstances play in shaping identities, especially for someone like Megamind, who grew up with a sense of exclusion. This subverted role also allows the audience to experience empathy for a figure traditionally associated with evil. As the protagonist, Megamind reveals his humanity, his frustrations, and his genuine desire to be accepted, even if in his own chaotic and clumsy way. Unlike a hero who fights to protect others, he believes he can only impose his value through strength, a belief shaped by years of rejection. His choice to be the villain is an adaptation to these experiences, and we see that, behind his actions, there lies a need for belonging and recognition that anyone can understand. This reversal of traditional roles not only makes Megamind a three-dimensional character, but also adds a rare layer of complexity in animation. By sympathizing with someone who is, theoretically, on the wrong side, the film challenges us to look beyond labels and reflect on what it really means to be a hero or a villain. This break from the black and white approach in animations makes Megamind's story irresistible, as it shows us that even those seen as wrong have motivations and dreams as human as any heroes. Megamind's journey is, in essence, a search for redemption and self-discovery. When he finally defeats Metro Man, and surprisingly finds no satisfaction, he begins to deeply question who he is and what he really wants from life. This moment is crucial, as it shows that despite having lived as the villain, Megamind has never truly known himself. Instead, he has settled into an identity projected onto him by society. This questioning sparks his journey of self-discovery, leading him to realize that happiness and fulfillment do not lie in the role of villain or hero, but in the freedom to be himself. Throughout the film, we see Megamind striving to understand what it means to live without the constant clash with Metro Man, his purpose up to that point. This quest leads him to explore various facets of his personality and encourages him to rethink his values. His decision to create a new hero, Titan, reveals his desire to bring about good, albeit clumsily and awkwardly. This trial and error process reflects the human experience. It shows that self-knowledge is a difficult path filled with failures but essential to achieving inner peace. Megamind's redemption reaches its peak when he decides to face Titan and protect the city he once sought to rule. This act of bravery comes from a newfound understanding. He realizes that being himself does not mean conforming to the image of a villain, but fighting for what really matters to him and those he now considers friends. Megamind's redemption journey is a powerful arc reminding us that it's never too late to change and that everyone has the right to rediscover and pursue a path different from the one they chose in the past. Humor is one of Megamind's trademarks and a powerful tool in making the character so captivating and human. Megamind isn't just funny because he's eccentric. His humor is an extension of his vulnerability. In many scenes, we see him using sarcasm and comedy as a defense mechanism, a way to mask his fears and insecurities. This blend of humor and fragility creates a direct connection with the audience, as it makes him relatable and accessible. He is not an imposing, ruthless villain, but someone who makes mistakes, laughs at himself, and, in some way, struggles to be understood. Megamind's vulnerability is subtly explored, especially in scenes where he questions his place in the world. Behind his jokes and outrageous schemes, there is a character who, for his entire life, avoided confronting his own feelings. Unlike other villains who hide their emotions, Megamind reveals them almost innocently, making him a sympathetic and even lovable figure. This creates a sense of closeness with the audience, as it's easy to root for someone who, even though flawed, is genuine and authentic. Additionally, humor is an entry point for his growth. As Megamind begins to understand what truly matters to him, his humor also matures, shifting from defensive sarcasm to light, hopeful irony. He does not lose his funny and clumsy essence, but now he laughs because he understands life's complexities and embraces his imperfections, something only a character in full transformation could do. Megamind is a character whose struggle for identity and purpose is at the heart of his journey. From a young age, he was labeled the villain in contrast to Metro Man, the hero, and this simplistic distinction shaped his worldview. To him, being the villain became his only way of being noticed and relevant. However, this predefined identity does not bring the satisfaction he imagined. When he finally defeats Metro Man, Megamind finds himself in an existential void, realizing that his entire life revolved around a role that deep down, he never consciously chose. This identity crisis opens the door to a transformation that redefines the character. The search for purpose leads Megamind to question what he truly wants to be. He understands that his identity doesn't need to be confined to a polarization between hero and villain. Rather, he can be someone who values his own authenticity. This quest is exemplified in his attempt to create a new hero, Titan, to restore the balance he believes is essential to his life's meaning. However, when Titan becomes an uncontrollable threat, Megamind realizes that his identity and purpose don't need to be tied to another person or a specific label. He finally understands that his worth and value exist independently of being a villain or hero. The struggle for a true purpose culminates in his acceptance as the protector of Metro City. Instead of being defined by rivalry or a role imposed by society, Megamind chooses his own identity and finds purpose in protecting those he once sought to dominate. This decision not only redefines what it means to be Megamind, but also symbolizes his liberation from the labels that confined him. Rather than villain or hero, he becomes, above all, someone with the courage to be himself. The relationship between Megamind and Metro Man is central to the plot and reveals much about the construction of both their identities. From the beginning, the two characters were forced into opposing sides, with Metro Man assuming the role of hero and Megamind that of villain. To Megamind, Metro Man represents everything he could never be: loved, admired, and accepted by society. This feeling of inadequacy drives Megamind to nurture an obsessive rivalry with him, hoping that, by defeating his opponent, he might finally feel complete and victorious. However, the revelation that Metro Man faked his own death to escape the hero role shows a surprising facet of their relationship. Metro Man, like Megamind, feels trapped by the expectations placed upon him. Although he appears to be living the perfect dream, Metro Man actually feels suffocated by the pressure to always be the virtuous example. This revelation further reverses the roles. Megamind, the supposed villain, ends up being the one who doesn't give up in the search for a purpose, while Metro Man chooses to escape his responsibilities. This dynamic subverts ideas of heroism and villainy, showing that the hero isn't always willing to sacrifice everything for his role. This complex relationship leads Megamind to realize that a true hero is not one born with gifts or celebrated by society, but one who is willing to fight for something greater than themselves. In the end, Megamind is more of a hero than Metro Man by choosing to protect Metro City when he could simply live in absolute power. The relationship between the two characters, therefore, is a mirror reflecting the choices each makes under society's pressure and in the search for the true meaning of life. Megamind's transformation from villain to hero is a journey of overcoming and redemption that culminates in a genuine act of altruism. When he sees Metro City threatened by Titan, a creation of his own failed plan, Megamind has the chance to flee and avoid responsibility. But at this point, he has already learned something fundamental: that being a villain or hero is less about labels and more about the actions we choose. He decides then to confront Titan, not to prove something to himself or society, but because he now genuinely cares about the city and the people around him. This final act of confrontation reveals how much Megamind has changed. The threat of Titan, someone he created and believed he could control, is the last lesson he needed to understand the power of choice. Now, he acts not out of rivalry or recognition, but out of a sincere desire to do what is right. This moment is the crowning of his journey. Megamind becomes the hero he never thought he could be, doing so in the most honest and genuine way, without seeking applause or glory. Megamind's acceptance as the hero of Metro City marks the end of his journey of self-discovery and redemption. He leaves behind insecurities, the need for approval, and the villain stigma that has haunted him for so long. His final transformation is both a personal victory and a powerful message to the audience, that we all have the ability to change, to overcome our mistakes, and to find a purpose that makes sense to us. In the end, Megamind becomes much more than the villain we all loved. He transforms into the hero we never expected but all needed to see. Megamind is much more than an animated comedy about heroes and villains. It represents a profound reflection on identity, self-knowledge, and the nature of choices. By challenging the audience to sympathize with someone who started as the villain, the film expands the idea that no one is completely good or bad. We are all products of our experiences, and the power to rewrite our own story is always in our hands. Megamind proves that, regardless of the past, each of us has the potential to become something greater and better than what others expect. Megamind's journey also carries a message of acceptance and empathy. He reminds us that people are more complex than they appear, and that what we often judge as flaws or defects are simply parts of a larger story. The film does this with lightness, humor, and touching sincerity, making the experience not only fun but profoundly inspiring. We see how Megamind, throughout his attempts and failures, becomes more human and understanding, building a real connection with those around him and finding a place where he finally feels accepted and valued. In the end, Megamind redefines the hero archetype for modern animation. He is not the perfect hero but the necessary hero, one who shows us that true strength comes from vulnerability, from accepting our own flaws, and from the courage to change. By making peace with his past and embracing his role as protector of Metro City, he proves that anyone, even the most unlikely, can find a path to goodness. Thus, Megamind becomes a timeless story about self-discovery, and its main character is a reminder that we can be the heroes of our own stories, with our weaknesses, peculiarities, and constant desire to improve.